A very popular topic that comes up around non-duality meetings and conversations is relationships, and what is relationship like without me or without separation. And really the most clearest way to talk around that is to expose that relationship demands two. It demands separation. It is separation. You could call it an aspect of separation. If there are two separate people or bodies or things, then there perhaps is some kind of relationship, whether that's wholesome or not so wholesome. It's always relational and relative, as one position to relate to another. And naturally that is, it would seem like, a subject-object paradigm. So if I am a separate person and I have a relationship with a friend, a partner, a spouse, a parent or a child or a colleague or whoever, it always seems like there's a separate me and a separate you, and we are relating to one another, and in that is a subject-object paradigm. So the other is always an object that I relate to, even though that may make it sound somewhat cold and bleak. Naturally that is the way in which experience and existence seems to appear. So they are not really seen as they are, because everything that I, a separate self, seem to see and relate to is a thing. It's a separate thing that I'm distant from and I relate to. And it may also come with these other things like ownership as well as relationship. So if it's my son or my mum or my partner, there's a kind of subtle or gross ownership or claiming of that person as a possession, like they belong to me and they are mine, and perhaps I belong to them as well. And what non-duality is really exposing is that there are no real separate things, places or people, so no one actually belongs to anyone else or belongs to anything else. And that is really quite incomprehensible, for that appearance which seems to experience itself as a separate individual. If there is no real separate self, no separate center, then there is no separation at all. There's no distance. There's no real separate bodies to relate to one another. There is only what is immediately being this. And there's no distance in that, because there's no location in that. There's no separation. And that is a kind of intimacy, but it's an impersonal intimacy, because there's no position, there's no close or far in that. There's no located thing where everything orbits around. So the dream is energy, you could say. It's energy appearing as a position, seeming to relate to bodies and people and places and all things. And in the absence of a center, in the absence of a separate self, which never really actually appears to happen, there's just the naturalness of this, really, totally immediate and fresh, pure. And there can be an intensity to that, although there's no rules. Nothing is certain, nothing is actually really happening in the way it seems to be, but there's an intensity and a vibrancy in the absence of an illusion of separate things, places and people. Everything is completely immediate, and there's a vibrancy in that, total sort of intensity. And so, of course, only to a separate self does it look like people are relating, even if it's said that there's no separation. And that's full on intensity, full on vibrancy. So there can still seem to be two or more bodies in what you might conventionally call a relationship, being romantic or friends or whatever. Of course this can appear to happen, but there's no actual separate people playing games and trying to negotiate and navigate one another, approach each other or avoid one another. There's just the natural, spontaneous, free-flowing, timeless thisness, and it's so completely, intensely and vibrantly what is appearing to happen. And anything can appear to happen in that. Sadness, anger, joy, elation, whatever, but none of it is happening to anyone. And nothing is pushed down, nothing is negotiated with on an emotional level, energetic level, physiological level. If attraction is appearing, attraction is appearing. And if repulsion is appearing, repulsion is appearing. But there's no sense that any of this is happening to anyone. That people belong to others and emotions belong to me, they're my emotions and all that stuff. There's just emotional and energetic, fluid, chaotic, energetic play. So it's all just freely expressing itself. No one is really navigating any of that. Already, no one is really navigating that. There's no chooser in the body already. It's only energy which has been mistaken for a person. And so in the absence of that, everything is just totally expressing as it is, without a doer, without anyone having to know that or relate to it or do something about it. It's so allowed in a sense, but unconditionally so. No one ever gave the green light for anything to happen. And so that can seem scary to a dream which has been taken for a person, because there's no autonomy to navigate relationships or anything else for that matter. But in that is a complete, stark, incomprehensible liberation. And so there's just play. The absence of two, the absence of separation, is the absence of relation. And in that is absolute, unconditional love and liberation, which is unpolarized, and therefore it's everything. Not necessarily positive or negative, it just is simply all there is, freely expressing and dancing as everything. There is no relationship already, there is only unconditional love.